Welcome back to another episode of Travel Preneur, where we explore the cutting edge of the travel industry. I'm your host, Meghan McSwain. Today, we're diving into the world of film tourism with an extraordinary guest, Georgette Blau, the president of On Location Tours. This company is a pioneer in bringing your favorite TV shows and movies to life through exclusive sightseeing tours in some of America's most iconic cities. Georgette, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Georgette, can you share with us what inspired you to start On Location Tours and just the journey of growing it into one of the world's largest TV and movie tour companies?
Yes, absolutely. I had just graduated college and moved to New York 2 years after college into the area of the Upper East Side, well known for where George and Wheezy lived in the classic TV show The Jeffersons. So I was walking up East 86 one day, East 86th Street. And in fact, I was working in publishing, just kind of had an interest in TV locations, especially classic ones. And I'm like, wait, I live right in where the Jeffersons moved on up to. And then started noticing so many other TV locations in New York. So that was in 98. In 1999, exactly 25 years ago, I launched On Location Tours in a van, so very small, only with a TV tour, and then over the years brought it to to include TV shows and movies, and then to have specialty tours, which I'm sure we'll discuss later, but such as the Sopranos tour, the Sex and the City tour, the Gossip Girl tour, and so on.
Wow. So now you operate in multiple cities and serve over 100,000 tourists. That's no small feat. How do you manage the complexities of running such a widespread operation at this point?
Yes. In fact, the challenging thing in the last few years was the pandemic put us sort of back to square one. So I was there even helping with phones and customers again. So I was having trouble kind of developing the company. But that being said, in the past year, exactly a year ago, we launched our Chicago movie tour, two tours actually in Chicago. So we have New York, Boston, Chicago, and in a few weeks, we're launching Atlanta. There's been a ton of filming there. So it's really what really keeps us apart from others is really the customization. And with that comes the complexities of customer service. So we have, oh my gosh, the day-to-day challenges of just, yes, a lot of other tour companies deal with this, but like making sure we're on private tours, picking up at the correct place, arranging the driver, arranging the vehicle. We have a couple of our own vehicles, but, sometimes we have to charter out, making sure it's a driver who's done the tour before. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. And on our public tours, you have even more challenges with having, 20 or 40 different sets of customers. And some of them will be running late to a tour, or some of them want to hop off early, and we may have to tell them that, there are insurance issues with that. Sometimes we have like a bachelor party that wants to customize. So it's just never a dull day.
It's a lot of moving parts, it sounds like.
100%. Yeah. Which makes it fun, but it's also, definitely challenging. And we're proud to say that we have almost a 5-star rating across the board, but it takes a lot of work to get to that. A lot of customer attention, and also like customers don't read things that they should be reading, so they come to us and say, whatever questions they're asking, and we're like, or maybe complaining about, I had no idea that XYZ, and we're like, it's all in the terms and conditions that you signed.
And you mentioned, the specialty tours. You've curated these variety of tours from Sex and the City hotspots to Central Park TV and movie sites. What goes into designing these unique experiences? Like, how do you keep them fresh and engaging for new and returning visitors?
Great question, because we have two things. When we start a tour, we do not start a tour unless there's a certain amount locations clustered in an area. We also have to make sure of a number of other things. One, there's certain IP rights. Number two, there's, if it's really a specialty tour. Number two, is it of enough interest? Is there enough interest out there? Number three, internationally, is there enough interest? Because that's approximately 40% of our business. So we want to make sure it's catered to international. How do we market to the internationals eventually? Like, for example, internationally, we often have like different names for the shows. like Sex and the City is called Sex and the Ciudad and Sex in New York in different areas. So that's another thing. What we do also with our general signature tours, like the NYC TV and movie tour, the Boston TV and movie tour, the Chicago TV and movie tour, is that every 3 to 4 months we actually update them. So to keep them fresh. And even if it's people's first time on a tour, we make sure that it's the most recent items are included, including what's filming that day or that week. We actually own an app called What's Filming Now, and it's the only one in the world that actually tells you what's filming near you. So people are really interested in that. So it's user generated, but we're able to then talk about that on the tours. And we just try to like keep, we add like 2 to 3 movies every 3 to 4 months, or TV show locations, just to keep it fresh.
Right. And you founded the Association for TV and Movies Tours. Can you tell us more about that mission, or the mission of the organization, and how it supports the film tourism industry?
Yes, absolutely. So it's interesting. When we first started in 99, we were the 3rd company in the world to do this sort of thing after The Sound of Music and Hawaii movie tours. And by now, there are actually over 100, approximately 110 movie tours in the world. So there's like, the jump has been huge. The association hasn't been as active like in the last couple of years because of COVID, but right before COVID, we actually had our first ever conference. It was only maybe under 10 companies. It was small, but we went on tours in New York. We generated so many like great brainstorm sessions and ideas and things, challenges that we have in common, that some of those challenges are for every tour company, but really in particular for us. And the growing phenomenon of TV and movie tourism, it's definitely not going to slow down. So we feel like by having this association kind of meetings and talks every once in a while, we're just sort of like not only sharing common ideas, but showing everyone in the world that we're together. We're together.
Right. We're united, and it does sort of help to bounce those ideas off and move forward.
Yes.
And considering the surge in tourism following the use of locations in films, which obviously has been going back decades, how does on-location tours capitalize on this trend effectively?
Yeah, so it's interesting. I mean, one thing I'll say also, if you go back, for example, to 1950s New York, you see the locations were mainly on stages, interior stages, and then you have it going to the 1970s, where you have films like the Al Pacino movies, like Scarface, where you have them out on the streets all of a sudden. And then fast forward another 20 years to the 90s, you have shows like Sex and the City that are all of a sudden inside these locations. So you're not filming as much on the lots. You're actually filming the interiors, which is really interesting. And it's been helpful not to have to necessarily set up a studio space. Like, you have this space there, you may just have to change it a little bit. We really, in our little way, we're helping all the businesses along the way. So people love when we come to them, because a lot of times it's a shop where people are actually shop. Or they'll maybe, like in the case of The Sopranos, they'll buy a beer or onion rings at a location. So we're just kind of helping the businesses along the way. And these are all pretty much all off the beaten path locations that people don't normally get to when they're in these cities, just kind of with the nature of where filming is. So they really just love seeing these locations, and we love taking them there.
Right. Instead of like them, it's not going to be something that's like right in Times Square, for example. It's going to be in a different neighborhood they might not be going to.
Exactly. Yep.
Yeah. As a speaker at international conferences on film tourism, what major changes have you observed in this sector over the years? And how has on-location tours adapted to these changes?
Oh, really? Just like what I was just saying about more interior filming, more exterior and interior filming, like really the whole idea of filming on location. We're interested and a little bit worried into AI. We don't think there'll be a slowdown for a while, but we'll see what's actually going to come of that with and some cinematography has already used that for locations, but at these conferences, I've been able to really, again, the united feeling is great. And also just seeing like the unbelievable growth. It's not going to slow down. Like, film tourism is here to stay. And people, whether they're doing it as in a group or, going on their own, I mean, people will often book a trip based on what they're seeing in TV shows and in movies. And I've been able to learn a lot through these conferences, even academically, sort of like of how to create tours in a climactic way, like where you're kind of building up through the tour and then choosing the locations toward the end that may be, if it's possible along the route, that may be more exciting. And it's just overall so interesting to us that, again, the people are so much of their trips are being influenced by what they're seeing on the big and small screens. And then they just kind of arrive to these cities wide-eyed. And usually it's pretty much on par with what they've seen in those shows and movies, but they're a little disappointed. Like the Friends building where, yeah, it looks a little bit smaller in person. Not sure if Monica could have really afforded it, but.
Right. All that. Yeah. That's another rabbit hole.
Yeah, exactly. Yep.
Yeah. What future projects or expansions are you considering for on-location tours, if any? Because I know you mentioned you're always keeping things up to date, as fresh as possible with there's always new movies and shows being filmed, but are there any other ideas that you've got planned for the future?
Yes, we're actually, after Atlanta, we want to do our first international tour in Toronto. Toronto has been a backdrop for so many films and TV shows, especially films, and we just feel like it would be a great city to start in.
Mm-hmm. And for someone eager to enter this sort of very niche industry of film tourism, what advice would you offer based on your own experiences?
One of the main pieces of advice is really it's the opposite of a history tour. History has already happened. With history, you're pretty much almost never have to update tours. You really have to be ready to have the resources to always be on top of things, always researching, always being able to update these tours, locations, information for the script. So you just have to be ready to have that time. Also, a lot of it, again, is just like typical of tours in general and attractions, I would say, in the different cities, just being prepared to have all those moving parts, deal with vehicles, deal with weather, with walking tours. We only hire actors for our tours, so they kind of share their time on the set with customers on the tour. But then we have to literally usually interview about 100 local actors to get to one or two people. That's how choosy we are. So just that whole, there's, again, may seem fun on the surface, but the day-to-day is sometimes tough.
Sure. But I like that sort of touch to use an actor because then they can offer all this inside information that you wouldn't get from just a tour guide, maybe who knows the city. But to be able to talk to a real actor and ask about the set and kind of what goes into a day of shooting and all of that, that's really cool. Looking forward, how do you envision the intersection of technology and film tourism evolving? And what do you think the role of on-location tours has in this development?
I would say just that on one hand, AI could be, if it's showing like a real location, people may visit it. I mean, one example that comes to mind is an older example, but the soup kitchen, the soup Nazi soup kitchen from Seinfeld. They never filmed there, but people go there all the time. It was a film tourism. It is a film tourism location, but again, they never filmed there. The Empire's the same, they even have the footprints there and everything, which is fun.
Wow.
People go there because of the show.
Sure.
But that's similar to AI if you're talking about real locations. The other thing I think is that all of the, you can't erase 100 years of filmmaking and TV shows, so people will still be traveling for things they've seen. I don't think there'll be a slowdown for maybe 20 to 30 years from now. And again, we're not sure if the AI will be real locations or not, but we'll see, or if it'll be like a mixture.
Well, I feel like, especially right now with just the surge of shows and miniseries and stuff like that on streaming services, it just seemed like everyone's watching TV, like everyone's watching the same shows. It seemed like something will trend and then everybody's kind of on that bandwagon. So then that show becomes really successful. And then it just like lives in this space for a very long time because people catch up to it and they can always catch it on streaming. So I think that's really interesting because it's not like how TV was 20 years ago, where if you miss the show, you gotta wait.
Yeah.
Or if you didn't record it or something on a beat.
Oh no, it's not repeating. Or when is it going to repeat?
Yeah. When are you gonna catch up with everybody else? So that was like, I remember Sex and the City. I never watched it live because I was just younger at that time. And so I had to watch it way later when it was on DVD or HBO streaming or whatever. So that's really interesting. But I could imagine you get a surge of new and people who probably weren't even born when the show was originally airing now kind of interested in it and wanting to take the tour. So I do think that there is going to be years and years of business, for you because
And yeah, which is great. So, but it is funny because we've had some tour guides recently interview for that tour and say to whoever's interviewing them from the company, say, "Oh, yeah, my mother used to watch that show, and like when I was 2 years old, I'm like, okay, get out, 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 out.
Right.
Interview's done."
Unbelievable. I know. I've noticed that too, that there's just like this surge of new fans that are like, were the 90s really like this? Or were the 2000s like, oh my goodness, that's wild.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Georgette, for talking us. I'm such a fan of TV and movie shoots and all this kind of stuff. So I found that just totally fascinating. And I think, you have a really cool sort of way of intersecting technology with film tourism. And I think it's just only going to get better. Let our followers know where they can learn more about on-location tours, where they can sign up for one if they would like to take one, and where they can connect with you.
Yes. So just a really easy website, onlocationtours.com. Again, onlocationtours.com. It's really easy to get on, book the tours. We always say it takes 2 to 3 minutes to book a tour. So it's really, really easy.
Okay, great. And did you want to share a LinkedIn or anywhere where people can learn more about your background? You're a veteran in this business, so I'm sure you have a lot to offer.
Oh, thank you. Yes, it's Georgette Blau. It's Blau. Even just the Georgette's not a common name, so Georgette Blau. And then all of our social handles are at On Location Tours, so that's pretty easy as well.
Great, perfect. Well, thank you so much. And to our listeners, please remember to subscribe and leave us a review. That really helps us a lot. And join us next time for more insights into the travel industry here on Travel Preneur. Take care, Georgette.
Thank you so much.